Young professionals love to travel, right? Of course, these days travel might look a little different, but that doesn't mean you can't start prepping for the next adventure, right? We talk about all of this and more in this week's interview with Jason Kramer, 28-year-old co-founder of Flashpacker, a startup with a mission to help the growing number of global Flashpackers get the most out of their traveling adventures through their online resources, including a blog, as well as their e-commerce platform. Interested in learning more? Listen on for Jason's story. We'll also be giving you some updates and details about Flashpacker over the next couple of months, but find out how to get a discount on their products as well. Let's get into it. Hey there, everyone. It's Camber with YoPros in the Know. We are here today with Jason Kramer, 28-year-old co-founder to a new startup that he'll dive into some of those details in a bit. He's currently in Ontario, Canada, and we've never interviewed anyone from Canada, so I'm very excited today. But we will, before we get started, just really quickly want to share that Jason and I were actually connected through one of his business partners, Steven, who has actually played a really big role in helping the YoPro with some of our digital marketing efforts. And so Steven connected us, and I'm excited to share Jason's story today. So Jason, can you get us started with just a brief background on yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm proud to be the first Canadian interviewed. I didn't realize I got that honor.
Oh, you
so
do? Yes.
Very cool. Absolutely. Well, yeah, so like Camber said, my name is Jason Kramer, 28, currently live in Ottawa, Ontario. Graduated with a marketing and finance degree a number of years ago, and initially got into sales with the thought that didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do long-term career-wise, didn't know what industry I necessarily wanted to go, but felt very strongly that sales experience would be the most relevant skill I could learn. So started in a sales job, outbound sales, selling IT services to local businesses, did that for a couple of years, and then joined a software as a service company and helped them build out their lead generation team. I was their first business development rep brought on, kind of laid the groundwork for that platform of lead qualification, and then moved over to more of the new business development, working with new clients and new partners for a number of years. Had a great time doing that, worked as a pretty small sales team. So got to see a lot of impact from the specific actions that I took and the clients I worked with, and really found a lot of success there and really enjoyed it. And then at the end of 2018, my girlfriend and I kind of made a 180 and made the decision to take a full year off. We both quit our jobs and spent all of 2019 traveling. We spent 7 months in Southeast Asia, followed by 3 months in Europe, not working, just traveling, just enjoying everything we could. And then part of that experience was Flashpacker Co., which is the new startup that I recently launched with one of my partners, Steven, who you mentioned at the beginning. Steven and I had met up in Spain. We were both long-term travelers, met up in Spain, recognized the need that, hey, we're long-term travelers, we're on medium to high budgets, and there's no one single place to find all the great high quality travel gear that we love. So we were, I think it was in Seville, Spain, Flashpacker Co. was born, and we launched it earlier this year at the start of 2020 and have since been very focused on that.
Great. Thanks for that recap.
Absolutely.
It's really cool to me to hear when I talk to any young professional what that career path looks like. You start in sales, then you get into a SaaS company, and then now you're working in a startup, and it's cool to see the zigzags, I think.
Right.
So you're taking a year off to travel, which is awesome that you were able to do that. That's really, really cool. You meet up with Steven, you have this idea. What happened next?
Yeah, it was definitely a cocktail napkin business plan over sangrias and tapas in Spain.
How horrible.
Steven had a lot of experience in digital marketing and e-commerce. I did not, but I had some sales experience and thought I could be impactful on more the procurement side, working with suppliers. And we both had very similar mindsets in terms of business and I think lifestyle goals that we thought starting and running an e-commerce company could provide for us down the road, as in the flexibility to be able to run it and work remote from wherever we want. So it was pretty much as simple as, hey, we came up with the idea. We spent a week or two kind of bouncing ideas back and forth, came up with the name Flashpacker. Flashpacker Co. and Flashpacker, for those not familiar, is basically a backpacker, a long-term traveler, but as opposed to a traditional backpacker who's very focused on not spending much money and being on a low budget, a Flashpacker, similar long-term traveler, but on more of a mid to high-end budget. So not afraid to stay in hotels instead of hostels, take planes instead of trains, that sort of thing. So yeah, we came up with the idea, started developing the concept in terms of what sort of products do we love, what sort of products could we sell, what's our content strategy going to be, how are we going to find our audience, how are we going to engage them, and then just started going for it. And it was, a couple hours here and there for the last few months of 2018. And then once we got into 2020, it was basically full speed ahead and contacting suppliers, building our website, getting writers for a lot of our content, developing that content ourselves based on our personal experiences, and then ultimately launching it a few months ago.
Great. So let's talk about the obvious here. You launched this in a global pandemic where virtually all travel stopped. So talk about that experience and looking ahead. I know we talked about it briefly before this interview. So kind of recap that for everyone, looking ahead, what does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a tough decision to make. Originally, we were going to launch basically at the very beginning of 2020, end of February, which is right when things kind of hit, country started locking down, and we had to make the tough decision to hold off. Our biggest concern being we would potentially lose a lot of suppliers who shut down due to other operations or went bankrupt, and we did actually. So we fortunately did make the right call because we would have been bleeding suppliers through March and the following months. So we kept waiting. And then as we rolled into June, we were like, hey, you know what? COVID's not going away anytime soon, most likely. But we talked to a lot of our suppliers, got their feedback. Obviously, e-commerce was booming. Everyone's stuck at home. Everyone's doing online shopping. Even though travel isn't happening, we still felt like it was worthwhile launching, even if it was, hey, maybe the caveat is we spend the next 3, 6, 12 months, really laying the groundwork to take advantage of what we anticipate to be a post-COVID travel boom. And again, we don't know if that'll be at the end of 2020, 2021, maybe even later, but it's going to happen. And we've got some really great suppliers, a lot of good partners who recognize, hey, it's not going to be a boom from day one when they launch a product with us, but we can really lay the groundwork, really build our audience, focus on our content, and building that trust and credibility so that when the time does come, when people are jumping back on planes confidently, we'll be able to take advantage of that and really have a great audience, great product offering, and everything ready to go, as opposed to waiting to figure out all those kinks down the road.
Absolutely. Taking a step back from Flashpacker and looking, back on your 7 years of being a young professional, 7, give or take, what is the biggest hardship that you've experienced?
That's a good question.
Sorry, this might be one of those that I threw at you without you being prepared.
Yeah, for sure. I'll go back to the first job I had at university. Did that for 2 years. And I was pretty used to and comfortable with, being successful at everything I did, and from high school and sports and university classes and student groups, case competitions, whatever it was. I was kind of just used to things working out really well and being successful. And the first year in that job, same sort of thing, hit the ground running, did really well, had a lot of great feedback, was hitting all my metrics and quotas. But then year 2, I got reassigned to a different division, different product line, and it wasn't the case. And it was hard to have a year kind of struggling along and not seeing any results from all the inputs I was putting in. And it was a tough decision. And I wasn't, I had a longer term plan to stay with that organization, and I wasn't actively looking for a new opportunity. And unfortunately, when that software company approached me, the stars definitely aligned. It was definitely a leap of faith. I'd literally only met one person at that company, interviewed over the phone with the rest of the sales team, and jumped over. And, that switch was really valuable because I was considerably more successful in that new role. But it was tough in that year or 2 of that first job, not seeing success and feeling like I was just spinning my wheels at something I felt like I should be successful at, but didn't really know why I wasn't. And ultimately, it just wasn't the right fit in terms of my personality and the organization culture. And I think as a sales rep, I wasn't as bought into the product I was selling as I needed to be. And that really made it hard to sell it effectively. And that was, it took a while to realize that and accept it.
Well, you can tell now that you are passionate about what you're selling as far as Flashpacker goes, but that's a great point. And something that you said really that stuck with me is that, you felt like your you were just spinning in kind of slow motion while you were standing there and not really
Hmm.
making moves when you thought you would. And that's such a common thing that happens. I mean, that happened in my first career, happens,
Hmm.
it happens to a lot of people. And I think it's a really big blessing at the end of the day, because it gets you to that next step, which could be
Right.
the step that launches your career. And it might take you to the next step that doesn't launch your career. And that's fine too. That's kind of
Yeah.
the young professional way, I guess. Which
Yeah.
takes me to my next question. You know, obviously you've talked a lot about Flashpacker. What are some ways? I mean, it really naturally fits very well with young professionals, right? So, like, say you're selling me something. I'm a young professional, and you know, why would I want to use Flashpacker, and how would it fit my lifestyle?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of what we're trying to do is, when we go look at a supplier or a new brand to bring on or new products, one of the first questions I would look at or ask myself is, would I use this? Would I buy it? And I think back to our experience with myself, Stephen, the members of our team. We're all avid long-term travelers, and have a lot of practical, real-world experience using gear like this. And in non-COVID times, we would obviously be taking all this gear out in the world and actually testing it in real life, which we'll get to when we can. So that's number one is, when we're looking at products, would I use it? And if we believe that, hey, this is valuable, it's thoughtfully designed, it's high quality, it serves a purpose, our job at Flashpacker Co. is to articulate that to our buyers or our consumers, our customers, and say, here's why we love this product. Here's who it's great for. It might be great for Canberra, it might not be great for someone else, it might be great for Asia, might not be great for Europe, that sort of thing. So who would it be great for? Why is it great? Why do we love it? And what purpose does it specifically serve? Because there is a lot of travel gear out there that doesn't serve a specific purpose, isn't unique, whatever it may be. So a lot of our content, a lot of our efforts is focused on very clearly saying for you specifically in your next trip or your travel goals, here's why this product is perfect for that, and trying to make that connection and that match.
Great. Well, we'll make sure after the interview is posted, we'll make sure to get people plugged in to Flashpacker. So when those traveling desires kick in, which I'm sure right now everyone's ready to just bust out.
Yep.
But when they are able to travel again, we'll make sure that they know to go to you. So
Absolutely.
I'm mindful of our time, so I do want to wrap up soon. I have a few more questions for you. So
Sure.
one thing I like to ask people I interview is, what motivates you? What drives you to be a successful young professional?
Yeah, definitely. And Flashpacker very much goes back to, or the motivation behind Flashpacker goes back to the specific motivation. And it's really having flexibility and freedom of time and location. And I'm a pretty big believer that once you free your time and your location, you can live any lifestyle you want. So not being tied to a specific city for a job, not being tied to a 9 to 5 or specific hours for a job, being able to work on your own schedule wherever you want can ultimately lead to whatever lifestyle you want. And that was a big takeaway from 10 plus months of traveling. You can only sightsee and try new things and explore so much, especially in one chunk of the world before it starts to get a little repetitive. And there was definitely something missing. And it was ultimately, hey, it'd be awesome to be able to work while doing this and build a business or run a business that can sustain this lifestyle. If you still want to be able to do that, we still want to be able to travel long term. But maybe it's, go down to Costa Rica for 4 months while working on the business and be able to work on your own schedule. So definitely being able to create that flexibility of both time and location is what motivates me.
I mean, I think that's great. And I believe that that's how you felt even before COVID, obviously, because you were traveling a lot before then, but it's something that is so doable now. I mean,
right.
you and Steven, have worked far apart for years now at this point, right? And so it's just, now it just is more, it's more of the norm.
Exactly.
And I think it's just only going to continue to grow, particularly as the world opens back up. So I think that's great. And it's really inspiring. It's something that I hope I can do one day. So wrapping things up, what is some last minute words of advice that you would want to share? It doesn't have to be about, Flashpacker or your day-to-day job, but what is some advice, if you haven't already shared it? I know we've touched on a lot, that you would leave young professionals with about their young professional years.
Yeah, for sure. Good question. I think whether, leaning on my sales experience or with a startup or even to an extent being a university, but basically every job I've had and something I think I've learned a lot over the last few years is learning where to prioritize your focus. And I don't mean that in terms of time management, but in terms of spending your time on the highest value activities and not being afraid to cut your losses on something that's not going to produce the results you want. And sales is an easy comparison for that. You see a lot of new young sales reps who get 15 leads and they're so excited they got 15 leads. I want to spend all the time on all 15 leads. Whereas realistically, there's probably only 5 you need to spend your time on because those 5 are the highest probability of being new business. And the other 10 you're probably just spinning your wheels on. So I've spent a lot of time over the last few years to try to get better at recognizing early on where should I be focusing my energy and being able to recognize, hey, this probably isn't a good use of my time. I'm not going to waste any more on it. And being able to cut my losses, even if I've already sunk time into it, to be able to cut my losses and say, hey, I'm not going to waste any more time on this. And that's helped a lot, both in sales and particularly with the startup.
Absolutely. Because when you're in a startup, you're working on, you have your hands in a million different things. And that's
right.
what I found.
There's basically 100 initiatives we could do at any time. And it's recognizing, all right, what are the 5 we actually need to do? And if we get 20 hours into one of them and then recognize, no, this isn't a good use of time, being able to say like, it's okay. Yes, we invested some time, but it's not going to pay off. Let's cut it and move on to the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's a great way to end the interview. I have started asking a lot of my interviewees, why did you choose your background for this Zoom call? Just because, it's the new norm. So why did you choose that? We got a TV in the background?
Yeah, this is just the home office. Normally it faces this way, but I've got my whiteboard behind me and it's just full of notes. So I thought that might be a little distracting. So I just pivoted it a little bit.
Great.
And this is the closest thing I had to a blank wall in the office here.
It looks great. I started asking people and it just adds a little, you get a little personality in there. You get to see. Well, Jason, how can we find you? How can we find Flashpacker?
Yeah, Flashpacker Co. online. We're also on Instagram, Flashpacker Co. and Facebook as well.
Great. And we're going to be doing some collaborations in the future for sure. So we'll make sure that we stay connected. Thank you so much, Jason, for being on YoPro in the Know.
Hey, thanks for having me.